Most people think cruising is just all beers, beaches, sunsets, but in reality, it can chew through your wallet pretty quick if you're not careful. So, this podcast, I'm going to talk all about how much it costs to go cruising, what my experiences have been, and what other people have experienced, and maybe better inform you on what you can plan to spend if you want to go cruising. And I've got it broken down into several different levels here. I've got low, mid, and high, and I'm going to go over topic by topic and then give you a recap at the end of the podcast as to what the totals I think you can expect to spend based on those price points, low, mid, and high. Um, so let me start off by saying that this can vary widely. That's up to your taste. Just like everybody back home, you like to go out to dinner a lot. Okay, you're going to spend some money there. Do you like to go entertainment, see movies? Do you want to go diving? Do you want to do that? It's going to depend a lot on what you want to do, and so I'll kind of break it down into sections, and you can figure out what section is more important to you. So the first section would be just the core monthly costs. That would be things like dockage and fuel, food and provisioning, crew costs, maintenance and insurance, things like that. So we'll start with dockage, moorings, and anchoring. Marinas. That can be easily your biggest expense if you choose to stay in them, but you can also be on anchor for free. Marinas. So we're in a marina right now in Harbor Island, and it is $3 a foot per day. So we're a 60-foot boat, so it's $180 per day to be here. Now, if you do by the month, they do it $2, so it's only $120 a day, but you have to pay for a month. But we're just here for a week, visiting friends and everything, and reprovisioning, getting crew coming off and on. This is the first time I've stayed in a marina, basically this whole trip. I think we stayed. Other than this, I've stayed in a marina since we left the United States, like a total of 3 nights in the last 3 months. So that's been a big savings for me. So marinas here in the Bahamas, like I said, we're paying $3 a foot right now. That's actually a pretty good deal for the Bahamas. You can find some that are $2 a foot for just a nightly fee, but most of them in the Bahamas can be $5, $6 a foot. There's even places like Norman Key and all that where it can be $10 a foot. So that can be very, very expensive. Whereas like you can literally be just around the corner and a nice anchorage, and it is free to be on anchor there. And then, there are mooring balls like Georgetown and Staniel Key have mooring balls. Those are generally around $30 a night. Again, but you can anchor just a little bit further away and not have to pay that mooring ball fee. The reason you'd want to get a mooring ball is if there's a lot of current going through somewhere or the holding's not good, but you still want to be close to land, depending on where you want to be. These costs can, vary seasonally too. In high season, the prices go up, and low season, they go down. So overall, for dockage and mooring, I've got my low, mid, and high. I'm going to say low is free. Never stay in a marina. You don't have to. We'll get into more like the cruising stuff about how much it costs to be in the Bahamas and do that for free for later. So mid would be $500. So that's like you want to get a marina maybe 1 day a week, or maybe you're on the hook for 10 days, you go into a marina for 2 days. That way you can do laundry easy. You can maybe fill up on your water if you don't have a water maker, things of that nature. Or sometimes you just want to be able to get easy access to restaurants and hikes and all that stuff. So I would say mid, you're going to do maybe 3 to 5 nights a month in a marina. Depending on the size of your boat and everything. That's for $500 a month. The high price point is $2,000 a month. You want to stay in a marina maybe half the time, you're going to spend a couple $1,000s a month doing that. If you want to stay in a marina all the time, you're going to spend double that. So, it's all relative, like your low, mid, and high. All right, next section I'm going to go on to is fuel. And by the way, guys, if you want some specific questions answered, maybe perhaps in the next podcast, the next podcast will be an Ask Me Anything. So our patrons and our channel members and our Sailing Doodles Navy, so you can get all those links there, or links in the description. You can join, and then I will answer your question on the next podcast. So if you have a specific question about a cost or whatever you want answered, you can just join there. It's as little as like $8 a month, and you can get your question answered on the next one. So fuel. Mostly that's going to be diesel for your main engine. You do have some dinghy fuel that's often overlooked, and then your generator usage. That depends on how much you use your generator, how well your boat is set up. So when I'm talking about these fuel, the cost prices on everything, I'm assuming your boat is paid off. You don't have a boat payment, and that you have it set to how much cruising you want to do. That's totally up to you, though. So I have low for fuel as $50 a month. That is like we haven't gotten fuel for this boat in 3 months. Well, no, it's been 2.5 months, maybe 2 months since I've gotten fuel on this boat, and I don't need to get fuel for another month or so. So when I do fill up, it'll probably be $500, but you break that over 3 or 4 months of getting fuel. It depends on what you want to do. So low, I would say $50 a month. That's if you're not motoring hardly anywhere and you just need to keep dinghy fuel in there to get around. Mid, $150 a month. You're doing some motoring. People don't realize like sailboats are fairly efficient fuel wise. Like our boat is a bigger boat, so I think it's burning probably around 2 gallons an hour, maybe when we're motoring. But a lot of sailboats, especially like a 35, 40 footer, I mean, they're burning less than a gallon per hour. And so they're doing 6 knots, 7 knots at that 6 knots at that speed. So you're getting a pretty decent range for that. And so if you're just going to motor 8 miles away, you're going to burn a gallon and a half gas to get there. So that costs you down here. Fuel is about $5 a gallon, something like that, maybe six. So you're like, it costs you $9 to motor from one bay to another if you wanted to do that. But if you're only moving a couple times a month, you're not going to spend a whole lot. High would be $500 a month. You're a trawler and that's the only way you get around, or you like to motor fast or whatever. So, and again, guys, at the end, I'm going to add all this up for you. But again, a lot of this is personal usage, just like it would be living at home. Food and provisions would be my next section, and this can easily, right up there with marinas and such, can easily be one of your biggest expenses. That's probably one of my biggest expenses. We eat out a lot. We dine out probably 75% of the time. We're dining out, and it's just because we like to go explore and do stuff like that. So grocery prices in the islands, like I can like a case of beer here is $65 for 24 beers. So that's almost $2. I mean, sorry, almost $3 a beer, and you're buying it by the case. In the U.S., you can buy a case of beer for $20. And then you go get what was it? I saw something the other day. I was pretty surprised on how much that was. Like a one of those SOS scrubbing pads was like $5. It's normally like 75 cents or a couple bucks in the States. A 12 pack of eggs the other day was like $12, something like that. I mean, I know they're high in the States, but in the Bahamas, groceries are almost double what they are in the US, just because all that stuff comes from the US, gets put on a cargo ship, goes to Nassau, then the Nassau puts it on smaller boats and send it out to all the other islands. So you think all the shipping and delivery costs on it can be really high. So groceries are a lot. I would recommend when if you're going to come over to the Bahamas for 6 months, buy as much stuff as you can. That, I mean, obviously you need fresh fruit and vegetables and bread and things like that, but all your canned stuff and your frozen stuff, get all that frozen and bring it on with you, because it's going to be a lot cheaper to buy it in the States. And then the further afield you get, is for more remote the island, like the prices in Nassau are probably 20%, 30% less than they are here in the island. So that's just the way it is. So uh, for food and provisionings, I put low as one of your bigger expenses here as $800 a month. I figure $300 to $400 a month in groceries, just because I mean, like, you can easily spend $300 at the grocery store and not buy that much stuff. I've done that before. I've been like, wow, I can't believe that was $300. So groceries, $300 to $400 a month. Dining out, another $400 a month. That would be for low, right? And when you're dining out, depends on where you go. I mean, you can blow $400 in 2 meals with two people. I mean, because like you're here in Harbor Island where we are right now. I mean, it's easily $100 a person to go out for dinner. It's crazy how expensive it is, because the meal is like what was it? What we have the other night? I got like a fettuccine alfredo or something like that. It was $34, and then you get a glass of wine. And that's $20. So you're at $54 right there. So you got two glasses of wine. You're $75. But then they add 10% tax. Then they add 18% tip on top of that. You're $100 a person. So real easy to get there. So for food and provisions, low 800, I have mid as 1500, and I have high 3000. That's eating out a lot. And so I think that's fairly accurate there. Um, Next section, I have it in here. It applies to me because I do have crew. But if it's just you or you and your partner, you wouldn't have that. But crew costs, I got to feed the crew. And so that's an added expense for me. That adds to my food and provisioning. Or do you have crew that are they sharing expenses? A lot of people will bring on like crew that are paying to be there. They have to share expenses on the boat, right? So you can do that if you need to like maybe help share your costs a little. But I'm not going to go into too much on that because for most people that probably wouldn't apply. The next big section, boat maintenance. This can vary a lot too, depending on how old your boat is, how complex your boat is, how big your boat is. That's things like you have to think about the routine stuff like oil filters, replacing your zincs and your impellers, all that. You have your non-routine stuff. That'd be like hydraulics and steering failures, torn sails. I'm pretty familiar with the hydraulic failures lately. And, you got to expect the unexpected is expected out here. So boat maintenance, and you also got to think that's not just like, okay, I only spent I changed some fuel filters today this week this month, and then I got a $150 part brought into me. So I spent $200 on maintenance this month. Well, okay, but then I spent $8,000 when the boat was on the hard getting bottom paint and all the other stuff. You have to add that in to your average monthly costs, right? So when you add that in, so I have low as $250 a month, which that would be, $3,000 a year, right? So that's you doing, so for low at that $250 a month, that's you doing almost all your own maintenance, changing all your own filters, doing your own bottom paint, things like that. Um, so that's at the low price. Mid, I have is $500 a month. So if you think about that, that's still $6,000 a year that you're spending on maintenance on a boat. And then high, $1,000 a month. So you're spending 12 grand a year on your boat maintenance, and that's you know you got to add up. Especially if you got a trawler or something like that, you need to add up for your engine overhauls. Or you got sails you need to replace every 5-10 years. You got to add that in there if you're going to do all that. So boat maintenance is another pretty good cost. Um, Man, it's warm in here. Okay, so the main air conditioner for the boat lives under the seat, and it's like 86 to 80 something degrees out there. And so, like, I have to turn the air conditioner off when I'm doing these podcasts. And I try to do them in the morning, but it still gets pretty hot. So I got a fan over there. I turn that fan on. Okay, there we go. Hopefully, it doesn't raise the noise level too much, but because we're at a marina. Normally, if we're on the hook, I can. There's enough breeze coming through the boat that I don't need to run the air conditioner. Even when it's 80 degrees and you have a fan, it's really not too bad. But when you're in a marina, you have to run the air conditioner. And that's another thing about marinas. Maybe you can get into is that electricity is extremely expensive here. So if you're going to use your air conditioner at the dock, expect to spend another $20 to $50 a day, depending on how much energy your boat uses. All right, so for boat maintenance, I had 250 low, mid 500, and high 1,000. Okay, we're going on to insurance. Specifically, this I'm talking about boat insurance. We'll get to the other health insurance later. Boat insurance, uh, is generally 2 to 3% of the value of your boat. So that can vary widely depending on how much your boat is worth, right? If you have $1 million boat, you can expect to spend $20,000 a year on insurance. If you have $100,000 boat, you're going to spend 2,000 or 3,000, depending on what you do. Now, if you have a little bit cheaper boat, like my first boat, I just had liability insurance because it was only worth $24,000. So it really depends on what you want to do. So I have for low, I have $200 a month, mid $400 a month, high $600 a month. So that, $600 a month, that's 72,000 or $7,200 a year. And, so that's about, a $300,000 or $400,000 boat, something like that. And then low at, $200 a month. So you're at, would it be $2,400 a year? So you're at, I don't know, a $100,000 boat, right? So it really depends a lot there for what you want to do with it and all that. And it's getting a lot harder to get insurance these days. So if your boat's over 25 years old, there's not too many carriers that will cover you. If you're an American and you want to cruise around in Asia or the Med on your boat, not too many insurance companies will carry you. Like Geico and all that will cover you if you're in the U.S., but it only covers you for like a month if you're in. That was I talked to them. They said, "Oh yeah, we can cover you in the Bahamas, but only for 30 days." Well, I'm going to be here for 4 or 5 months, so it doesn't really work. And it is harder to get insurance. It is becoming increasingly difficult and expensive to get insurance. I think that's not just about boating. I think that's you got all the fires and the natural disasters and all that stuff. I think it's getting harder to be everywhere. Um, all right, so my next section would be communications. Um, Starlink. Everybody has Starlink these days, and I would say at a bare minimum, that's kind of my. So I put as my low. I put $150. So I think maybe it's $165 for the bare minimum plan for Starlink. I don't want to get into all that stuff on Starlink. Like there's a bunch of different plans, and then I'm working with another provider, FMC, but it $165 a month bare minimum, and but that's not having, so that means when you leave your boat, you don't have Wi-Fi. So you're not going to have cell phone service, right? But you will have coverage when you're on your boat. Uh, Now, so I only put low and high on this. So I did low, $150 a month. That'd be just having Starlink on your boat. That way you can stream Netflix, you can do email, you can do whatever you want on your boat. When you leave the boat, you won't have it. And then I put high as $400 a month. That's you and your partner both having cell phones, right? So it's $150 a month for Starlink, and then $150 a month for each of you to have your phones, because you're going to be roaming probably, and they're going to charge you a little bit. Or I think T-Mobile does like free roaming, but they lower your speeds, all that. So I only put two price points there: a low of 150 and high of 400. All right. Now the next big section I'm going to go to is kind of the hidden cost that people don't think about when they're cruising. So my first section would be customs and cruising fees. You need a cruising permit wherever you're going. Like in the Bahamas, I think it was $600, and it's also based on the size of your boat and how long you're staying and all that. Because my boat is over, I think the cutoff is like 50 feet. I pay $600 for my cruising fee, and I think that's good for 3 months. And you can extend it. Uh, and then but if you're under 50 feet, it's $300 for the same thing. And then every country charges you something. So when you leave the Bahamas, and then you go down to Turks and Caicos, you're going to pay a cruising fee there. And then you go down to Dominican and all that. It ends up being about $100 a month for cruising fees, depending on the size of your boat. And then things like pet importation. So I had to get a pet permit for my dogs to bring them in, and that would be I budget about $50 a month for that. It ends up being, I think, to bring the two dogs in, it was around $200. But then I had to get the vet visit beforehand and all that stuff. So another so $200 for the imports, $200 for the vet visit. So you're at $400. I'm going to be here 4 or 5 months, so you're looking at $100 a month, maybe $50 a month, depending on your dogs. If you only have one, whatever, or your cat, whatever you want to do. So um, and then the next little subsection here will be breakdown and emergencies. You need to have an emergency fund. You need to have a few $1,000s for if shoot goes wrong, right? Like my hydraulic steering failure the other day. It really wasn't that expensive to do. I got a seal kit for $150, and I luckily had somebody bring it into me, so I didn't have to pay shipping or anything. So that was kind of nice. But like, if you didn't know how to change out that seal kit, you'd need to spend $2,000 or $3,000 on a brand new hydraulic ram, and so you need to have like an emergency fund to fix the stuff on your boat if stuff goes wrong. You need to, get somewhere where you can get somebody to do some work on the boat. You need to have an emergency fund for that. And then that would go with like shipping parts. You don't think about, okay, so that seal kit's $150. Well, luckily, ran into a guy he had crew flying down, in a few days out of Fort Lauderdale, and the guy was willing to go pick up the seal kit for me, because it was close to his house, the people that distribute it. So he went over, picked it up, cost me $150. He went and picked it up, and then it was a little bag, so he just put it in his carry-on or whatever it was, and he brought it over for me. Now then, if I couldn't do that, then I'm probably going to have to pay another $150 just to bring that over, because I'm going to have to put it on a international shipper. Then I got to pay the import duties and all that stuff. So you got to add that kind of thing in. All right, another section, which would be your health insurance and your travel insurance. This, again, is one of those things that can vary widely. I have basic uh, disaster insurance, basically, and it only covers me for like a few months in the U.S. itself. I think I'm paying about $500 a quarter, or maybe it's 600, and I have like a $5,000 deductible, and it only covers me in the U.S. for like 90 days, something like that. Because health insurance is generally, or health care is generally a lot cheaper outside the U.S. I get it, like the U.S. has some of the best healthcare in the world, but it is some of the most expensive healthcare in the world. And then travel insurance. You can get like the Dan with Diver Network, whatever that is. So like if you need to be airlifted out, you can get insurance for that kind of thing too. And I don't think that's very expensive. I think it's only like $500 a year for that. But it's a lot cheaper than paying $50,000 to get an emergency care flight out of here, or whatever it is. And then you got best visits for the dog and all that. So you know, uh, it depends on your insurance, where you're from, your Medicare, Medicaid, are you having to pay all that stuff, or you got a pocket? That varies widely. So if I put low as $200 a month, and that's probably just for basic, high deductible, doesn't cover like any doctor's visit. That's just like if you break your leg and need to go to the hospital or something, it'll help cover that. Mid $500 a month, high $1,000 a month, and I mean, health insurance is so expensive. So who knows how much you're going to spend there. Um, all right, so next section, I didn't really add this into to the main cost because that's really up to you. Would be entertainment and exploration. That's like dive trips. Are you going to go on snorkel trips? Are you going to do excursions? You're going to do zip lines. You're going to do all that stuff. You're going to go on a tour. You're going to go to the beach bar. What are you going to do? So I didn't put that in there. You can kind of add some of that into food, like dining out type thing, but that's really up to you and how much you want to spend. So it's kind of hard to add that in there. But those add-on costs can definitely creep up. You do a zip line that's $100 a person, that's $200, and then you go on an excursion, a dive trip, it's $150 a person. You just spent an extra $600 on excursions on two excursions. All right. So before I give you like uh, my recap on what everything costs, some tips and tricks to cut costs. I mean, number one, my most important thing for me would be DIY repairs. Can you fix your own boat? Do you have to hire somebody to do it? Because like marine mechanics cost like $100 an hour. So learn your systems, do it yourself, so you can, uh, save that money. Solar and lithium batteries and the water makers and stuff. So if you have enough solar that you don't have to run your generator, number one, you're saving on diesel. Number two, you're saving on wear and tear on that generator and all the routine maintenance you're going to do. And then, you need to overhaul the thing every 10,000 hours or whatever. So, but I mean, you're going to pay for that solar up front. Although I mean, it's so much, I think having solar, I don't know. If you did a DIY solar installation on your boat, you say you can buy like the solar arches, to put on the back of your boat. I don't know how much they cost, a couple $1,000. If you can do it yourself, and then you install 1,000 watts of solar at it's $1,000 for the solar panels for that, and then all the inverter chargers and all that stuff. You're looking at another $1,000 for whatever the PPT controllers and all that. So you're spending $4,000 on that um, solar setup. But if you're paying, you're running your generator, 5 hours a day, or you got to be in a marina more often, it's a lot cheaper to pay that $4,000 up front than to pay an extra $1,000 a month to stay in a marina because you don't have enough power on the boat. And same with water maker. So like a water maker, water in the Bahamas on the dock here is like 30 or 40 cents a gallon. And so you do 100 gallons, there's $30 right there. So it adds up quite a bit. Cook on board. So that we go back to water maker. So the water maker might cost you $5,000. You got to do the math. I mean, okay, if you're going to spend, you know, $30 per 100 gallons, okay, then after 1,000 gallons, you're at $300. So you're gonna do the math. How long is it gonna take you to get your ROI, return on investment, on that water maker? It's not gonna be a 1 year deal. It might be a 2 or 3 year deal, but eventually it will be worth it. Plus the convenience of having a water maker. Like you don't have to go to a marina every week and pick up water. And you're going to spend less on the marina anyway. You can go to the fuel dock and get water. They'll charge you 40 cents a gallon, or it's just easier to have a water maker too. Cook on board, that's a no-brainer. It's a lot cheaper to cook on board, and buy in bulk before you leave the U.S. I mean, like, you like mac and cheese, okay, buy 10 boxes of mac and cheese before you leave, because that's going to be $2 a box in the U.S. and it's going to be $6 a box here. So, no brainers there. All right. So now the recap, is it worth it to do all this? I mean, uh, so I have as your low price point. I have 1750 a month. That's pretty basic. You're not going out to eat hardly at all. You're not staying in marinas at all. You are very self-sufficient on the boat. You don't need to go in to get fuel very often. You have a water maker. You have a good solar system setup. And then you're not doing a whole lot of excursions. So that's bare minimum. So it's 17. It's 1800 a month, something like that. So you're looking at $23,000 a year, but it's totally doable. I mean, you can easily do that. $23,000 a year. I think you can easily do that. Mid, I have $4,100 a month. You're getting a little more comfort. That's $50,000 a year. What are you living on right now? What are you earning? Are you earning $50,000 a year? Well, then it's going to be a similar kind of lifestyle as you have right now. Um, that in my opinion. And then the high, I have 8650, but really the sky's the limit. So 8,650 would be the high lifestyle, and that's going out to dinner pretty much anytime you want. That's going to the beach bars. That's doing the excursions. That's having the fun. That's doing all that stuff. So okay, are you making $100,000 a year back home? Well, then that's the lifestyle you're already living. You know what I mean? Depending, obviously. I mean, people have other bills and family got to pay for and all that stuff. So I mean, I'm just speaking in general cost here. You leave me a comment down below how many things that you think I got wrong on all this. But so compare that to land life, how much is your mortgage back home or your rent? I mean, that's what you're going to be spending down here going to a marina or doing whatever. So I think it's not just about saving money going out cruising. It's about the freedom and adventure you get to have while out here just cruising around and getting. I mean, nobody ever said I regret spending that 6 months in the Bahamas. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say that, but I've heard plenty of people get older and say, "Man, I wish I would have done that, but I'm too old now. I don't have the physically. I can't do it." You know what? So I would say if you want to do it, find a way to make it happen. You definitely can do it for 6 months, do it for one season, take a sabbatical. You can do it for as little as, I said $23,000 for a year. So you do it for 6 months, then okay, do it for 12 grand. Save up. Granted, you're gonna have to buy the boat too, but you can buy a $25,000 boat and save up another $15,000. So $40,000. You go spend 6 months in the Bahamas. You turn around and sell the boat for what you paid for it. Hopefully, it only costs you $15,000 to go spend 6 months in the Bahamas. And you get to decide if that lifestyle is for you. And then if it is for you, find a way to make it happen. Work online, do what you got to do to get there. And if you're planning on doing it one day, the one thing I would recommend is like set a date and make it happen. Put a post-it note on your refrigerator. November 1st, 2025, we're going. And then you just, every time you open that fridge, you're like, oh man, what did I do today to make that happen? And when you get there, you're going either way. If you're not ready, you will never be ready. You'll always find an excuse not to be ready. You're going anyway. Figure it out. Make it happen. That's just my philosophy. That's kind of what I did. I mean, I did that. I had a date. I was planning to leave. I had a date in November on 2016. I was planning to leave. I missed it by a few days because I was waiting on some parts and stuff like that, but I still pretty much got there. All right. So, please leave me a comment down below. What do you think I missed? What do I need to cover? If you want your next question answered, you want a question answered in the next podcast, be happy to answer it. Just join our Patreon, the Sailing Doodles Navy, or become a channel member. And then I'll be posting in a couple days asking for questions of your podcast, and I'll answer it. So, and even if it's not related to how much cruising costs, I'd be happy to answer it in the next question. So thank you guys for supporting the channel. Please make sure you're subscribed to this channel. It is different than my Sailing Doodles channel. So really helps me out. So thank you guys, and I'll see you on the next podcast.